Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Dog and Projections. I'm Lucas, and as I mentioned, Eric is out for this week, but today we have a special guest. We have UEP.
Good to be back.
Welcome back to the channel. It's been like a year. But anyway, today we'll be discussing our predictions for the 2021 New Jersey governor election and the 2021 Virginia governor election. And with that being said, let's go right into it. So I'll start with New Jersey. This is an update, obviously, from before. In a previous video we had, I think, maybe I would say 2 or so months ago. So obviously, Eric and I, our home state is New Jersey. So I think we do know a decent amount about this. So just to preface this race right now, Phil Murphy is a pretty popular Democratic governor right now. He's against Jack Ciattarelli, who I believe was a former state assemblyman. So the newest update we got from last video was that he has chosen his running mate. He chose, I believe, former state senator Diane Allen, who is actually a pretty decent candidate for him to choose. She ran several points ahead of the Republican nominee for president, I believe, and potentially Chris Christie as well, when she ran for reelection for her district. Of course, however, she has not run statewide before, so this will be interesting to see. I think she does consider herself as more of a moderate type of candidate. And, you know, UEP and I were actually discussing this before. Jack Ciattarelli is really not running that great of a campaign. He's running very pro-Christie. He's known for being a very close Christie ally during the Christie years. And he's running, actually tying himself decently to Trump as well. I believe actually Nikki Haley came down to a campaign with him. So I'm going to briefly touch on polling right now, because there were some concerns raised about this poll having Phil Murphy only up by 1 or 2 points.
I'm sure we all believe that.
Totally. But this is done by the Club for Growth, which is a very conservative group. I don't trust anything out of them. And if you're a Republican and the Club of Growth has you down, you're going to lose by a massive margin, because this poll should have you up. This is like a very, very conservative group. And needless to say, New Jersey is a very deep blue state. Of course, some people mention that, you know, Chris Christie won in 2009. He won in 2013. Well, in 2009, he won because John Corzine was very unpopular, so he ended up defeating him narrowly. 2013, he became very popular after Superstorm Sandy, and that's how he won. Now, Chris Christie's going to hurt you in a free campaign if you're a Republican. In 2016, a lot of New Jersey residents, they really didn't like Chris Christie because they thought he was out campaigning too much, about his future political positions, and that he wasn't caring about the state. And with Buttigieg coming in, everything basically collapsed. He became the most unpopular governor in the United States, hence why Phil Murphy defeated Chris Christie's former lieutenant governor, or current his lieutenant governor, Kim Guadagno, by 14 points. And not to mention that Kim Guadagno ran a very anti-Christie campaign. Jack Ciattarelli is not doing that. So that's probably going to cause him to lose by even more. The vast majority of New Jerseyans don't like Chris Christie. And, you know, Jack Ciattarelli is really not doing a good job of trying to distance himself. I am also going to briefly mention one last thing, which is New Jersey swinging, why, you know, we're seeing a lot of trends to the left. I think a lot of it is because of the suburban areas. I don't think I have, unfortunately, not a district map, but I'll just use this map instead. Actually, I'll pull up the 2017 map. But essentially, a lot of the traditionally Republican suburban areas have been trending a lot to the left recently, which was exemplified in the 2018 midterm elections. My district, District 11, right around here, was won by Mikey Sherrill in 2018 by, like, I want to say 15-ish points. And that was a flip from Rodney Frelinghuysen, who won in a landslide. These ancestrally Republican districts are moving quickly to the left. This is also seen with Malinowski in 7 and slightly with Kim in 3, in 3. Now, you know, to kind of further add to this, in 2020, we saw Morris County flip for the first time, which is another traditionally Republican suburban county that has been shifting to the left. So that just further goes to show that New Jersey's turning more and more blue. And quite frankly, especially with the fact that Phil Murphy is decently popular and not a John Corzine type of character, Jack Ciattarelli basically has, like, not really any shots of winning. So I'll pass it over to UEP now.
So that's a really, really good analysis. And I think that the most intriguing part for me about New Jersey is look, we know that Phil Murphy is very likely to win this race, and he's likely to win it by double digits. So this race is not going to be too competitive. But what we could see is, and if Lucas will do me a huge favor here and pull up the 2017 map of New Jersey, he talked about how Joe Biden did flip Morris County, which he's better with New Jersey local politics than I am. But you know, there's a common trend here, and it's that we're seeing what I'll use his term, ancestrally Republican areas have been shifting to the left because a lot of these voters are socially liberal, and the Republican Party, especially in the age of Donald Trump, is just not appealing to that type of voter anymore. College-educated voters used to be pretty Republican. They broke for Bush in 2000, they broke for Bush in 2004, and even Obama couldn't really do that well with him in 2008. In 2020, though, Joe Biden became the first Democrat to win college-educated voters by double digits, and he became the first Democrat to actually win suburban voters since like Bill Clinton. So when we talk about ancestral Republican areas, New Jersey is a prime example of that. And this election, I think, and even 2017 will prove it's not just a Trump thing, because voters, they turned against Kim Guadagno. I think I pronounced that wrong.
Guadagno, close enough.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But she was, like Lucas said, she was Chris Christie's lieutenant governor. She ran a decent campaign. She attempted to distance herself from him, even though she was his lieutenant governor. And Murphy still won by 14 or 15%, and he still did carry a lot of the counties that, would have voted for Mitt Romney in 2012. So I do think Phil Murphy's going to win, and I think he'll win with a similar coalition in 2017. I think win by a little more this time because, unlike a lot of governors on both sides, whether that be Andrew Cuomo or Brian Kemp, his approvals haven't really changed since 2 or 3 years ago. He's always been a fairly popular governor. He's always kind of matched up with what you'd expect as a typical Democratic governor in a decently blue state. So I would expect for him to win by something like 15 to 16%. So yeah, I'll pass it back over to Lucas for Virginia.
I agree with that. So I'll start off with Virginia, and then I'll hand it over to UEP after. So this election features Terry McAuliffe, also known as, I think, T-Mac, against Glenn Youngkin, who's a businessman. Terry McAuliffe, obviously the former governor, very well known in the state, won the Democratic primary in a landslide. And there are some people who are thinking that Glenn Youngkin can actually pull out a win here. Now, I will say, I don't think Glenn Youngkin's running that great of a campaign. It's almost like he's kind of getting both sides angry. I remember seeing one of the ads he ran. It was talking about, T-Mac has all these connections to Trump. Like, I get what you're trying to do because, the suburban areas, Northern Virginia suburbs have shifted a lot to the left recently since the Trump presidency, but you're turning off Republican voters. And then, 2 seconds later, he's going to talk about being anti-abortion, which is going to hurt him with Democratic voters. He's trying to play the middle and trying to help both sides, but it's really not that effective. I feel like it might just end up backfiring on him in the end anyway. So, I'll let UEP extend more about this.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest problem that we are seeing, especially the Glenn Youngkin's campaign, is that he can't play to the middle because Virginia is a state that is getting more and more suburban every day, and it's getting more and more diverse every day. We're seeing Hispanics and Asians, especially in the DC suburbs. They are a group that is growing in that area, and they're increasingly Democratic. So Glenn Youngkin is actually running what I think is one of the worst campaigns possible for what the cards he's dealt. And I get that Terry McAuliffe is not running an ideal campaign either, and that's why the race is, closer than some people originally expected. But at the same time, when Glenn Youngkin, like you said, talks about abortion, Virginia is a very pro-choice state. It is a state that even some Republicans that are left over in the Nova suburbs or in Fairfax County or in those areas, there's still a lot of them are still pro-choice because they are socially liberal. There are still some Republicans left over that are pro-choice, that are pro-LGBTQ rights, but still tend to vote Republican. So, Glenn Youngkin is kind of alienating those voters when he says that stuff. And then for him to tie Terry McAuliffe to Trump, I think that everyone knows that Glenn Youngkin is the more pro-Trump candidate in this race. And even though he, won't say too much about it because, he's not going to say he's pro-Trump and to say the voted for Joe Biden by 10%, it's still, I think those voters know that the R next to his name does indicate that he is probably the favorite of Donald Trump. He probably supported Donald Trump at least more so than Terry McAuliffe. So I think the number one thing for Terry McAuliffe, or that he has going for him, is that he is the former governor of the state. So Virginia, if those of you who don't know, has this really weird rule where you can't be governor consecutively. You can't win consecutive terms. You can do it more than once. So he was governor from 2014 to 2018. Then Ralph Northam came in. He won into a 2017 election, and now he is vacating, and now it's going to be Terry McAuliffe likely winning this race. And I said it, I think he's going to win. Now, there was a point in time, like back in July, where I thought that Virginia could have been, close to 5%, but the polls we've seen have shifted towards Terry McAuliffe. Even Trafalgar, which me and Lucas talked about before the beginning of this video, Trafalgar has Glenn Youngkin down. And when Trafalgar has you down as a Republican, that's never a good sign. And, I get that Trafalgar has not been the most accurate in the past, but we can still use it kind of as a reference or a checkpoint to see where these people are or where Glenn Youngkin is at. And he's only at 46% in Trafalgar, and the common theme has been that he cannot crack more than 45 or 46% of the vote. And Donald Trump got 44% of the vote in Virginia. I think Glenn Youngkin will get maybe a little more, maybe like 45%, but the Republicans have not been able to crack that really since like 2013, which is, when they had a competitive election last time in Virginia. So I do think Terry McAuliffe is going to win, and I think he's going to do it with the power of the Nova suburbs, just very, very socially liberal and going for him over Glenn Youngkin.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I want to also mention with the Nova suburbs that we saw those shifts in the 2018 House election, which is when we saw Jennifer Wexton in the 10th district in Virginia, in the Northern Virginia suburbs. She defeated Barbara Comstock by a pretty decent margin, also with Abigail Spanberger in the 7th district, which was a little more of a surprise for people. And the reasons for their victories was because of that Northern Virginia suburban shift. We saw many of those voters who were traditionally voting Republican shift a lot to the left, which ultimately propelled them to victory. And we saw kind of that similar pattern in New Jersey as well, with the suburban voters shifting more and more to the left, which is probably going to happen again in 2021. So let's head to our predictions then. I guess I'll start first. Starting with New Jersey, I think it's safe Democrat. Oops, not Pennsylvania, but I believe New Jersey is safe Democrat. I think the floor, the bare minimum is 15 points. Honestly, I don't see Phil Murphy winning by less than that. I think the ceiling is actually somewhere around 21 points. I think in a best case scenario, he could pull out that kind of win over Chitterelli. In Virginia, I'm going with a likely Democratic. I think the floor is around, 6 points, and the ceiling might be like 10 to 11 points, because it'll definitely be interesting to watch. I know it's probably going to be likely, but the exact number I haven't really settled on that yet. So I'll clear the map and we'll head to UEP's prediction.
So we've got similar picks, I guess you could say. So for New Jersey, I think Chitterelli's going to lose by something like 15 or 16, so that would make it a safe Democratic race. But I think that Murphy has a little bit lower of a floor than you said. I think he could potentially lose by 11 or win by 11 or 12. And that's only because there could be a sentiment where if suburban white voters in New Jersey, especially in the 11th district, like you said, which was Republican until 2018, if they, decide to come out a little bit more for Jack Chitterelli than expected, that could make the margin narrow up, because that is a pretty big area. And, New Jersey is a pretty suburban state. So if there is like a minor swing in the suburbs, it wouldn't really affect the outcome of the race, but I think it could make it a little narrower. So certainly, I think a little bit lower for floor there for Phil Murphy. But in Virginia, I totally agree with your call. I think McCaulife's going to win by 6 or 7 in Virginia. So that'd make it a likely Democratic race. I think his floor, again, a little lower. I think he could win by like 3 or 4 in a worst case scenario. And that's only because, like I said, not really the suburbs in this case, but if Glenn Youngkin can do a better job of getting rural conservatives out to vote than we expect, it could make the race narrow up a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not really going to impact the outcome of the race, and I'd be very, very surprised if Glenn Youngkin won. In my eyes, he has like a 5 to 7% chance of winning, and Chitterelli has like a 0% chance of winning. So, yeah, those are my predictions.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure. And that does mark the end of this video for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, UEP, for joining me.
My pleasure.
It's been a very long time. But anyway, if you like this episode, please hit like one. If you like her content, please subscribe. We'll see you in our next episode tomorrow. You can do the see ya. I give you permission.
See ya. I tried.